talk about another woman, extraordinary woman, called Jael. Somebody say Jael. Ooh, now, there's so much to say about Jael. I'm just going to begin with it today, but I definitely won't be able to finish it. But Jael was an extraordinary woman. Extraordinary woman. She marked her time. Judges chapter 5, verses 6 and 7 speak about the time of Jael. It talks about the days of Jael, or the time of Jael. So, let me tell you a little bit who Jael was. Before I get into Jael, I need to give you a bit of backstory. We need to have a bit of backstory. The backstory is that I began telling you the story last week, that Israel was in slavery under the hand of a man called Jael for about 20 years. During those 20 years, they suffered harshly. The Bible says he treated them harshly. When you go over to the next chapter in the Song of Deborah, you find some of the sufferings alluded to. Some of them included economic embargo. Jabin had blocked the roads of Israel so they would not be able to sell or buy. And at that time, you know, people didn't have fridge. They weren't able to conserve food for a long time. So if you block them, they can't sell, they can't buy. You create immediate famine. So those people, they created famine in Israel. Artificial famine, they created in Israel. They also regularly raided the towns and plundered the houses of those people. Not only they stole their goods, but later on in the text, you find that not only they plundered their goods, but the Bible says they did not divide every man a girl or two. When they came to the house, not only they stole their goods, but every man took at least one or two girls with them. And they humiliated those girls. So they were violating the children of Israel. So it was under the circumstances that Israel was living for 20 years. And finally they called on the Lord. And when they called on the Lord answered through a man called, the Lord answered and called a man called Barak. But Barak did not answer to the call. So God called Deborah to tell Barak to go to war. And Deborah the prophetess called Barak to go to war. And I want to get into the whole story. You can read the story. When they went to war, God had promised them to give them victory, and God stood by them. God moved the forces of the universe, both visible and invisible, for them to have the victory. And the day that they went to fight Sisera, the Bible says even the stars in the heaven fought against Sisera. Because when God is with you, even the forces of the universe, the very forces of the universe, back you up. Somebody shout glory. And the prophetic word over us these days is that in this generation, God is going to lift up ordinary women who will become extraordinary figures in our time. Jael was an ordinary woman. There was nothing special about Jael. Look at the verse again, how they describe Jael. When they were described Jael, they only used three words or four words to describe Jael, the wife of Heber. That's all. That's the only description that they had. To the tent of Jael. Who was Jael? The wife of Heber. She was a nobody. Nobody knew her. She wasn't like a judge like Deborah. She wasn't a prophet like Miriam. She wasn't a queen like Esther. She wasn't a matriarch of faith like Sarah. She was just Jael, the wife of Heber. But Jael, that ordinary woman, normal woman, God is going to use her to mark her time. Never undermine the power of an ordinary woman. Oh, you didn't hear what I said. Never, never, never undermine the power of an ordinary woman. Rosa Parks was an ordinary woman. Just a woman who was just coming from work. She was tired and she was coming from work. The bus driver that asked her to give up her seat so she can give it to a white man made a mistake. Oh, he made a mistake. She wasn't a big woman. She wasn't, but that bus driver made a mistake because she made history that day. Jael was the kind of woman, yes, my husband is supposed to take care of the tent and he's supposed to build the tent. But if he's not there to build the tent, if he's unable to build the tent or he's unwilling to build the tent, I'm going to pick up the hammer and I'm going to pick up that nail, and my children are not going to suffer. My children are not going to be in the street. My life is not going to be wasted. I'm going to get up and I'm going to make it happen. Look at somebody, say, make it happen. Woman, you can make it happen. Woman, you can make it happen. You don't have to put your life on pause until a man shows up. My goodness. I said you don't have to put your life on pause until a man shows up. Do something. I said do something with your life. Do something. If Boaz hasn't shown up yet, get yourself a car. Buy a condo. Begin a business. Invest something. If Boaz hasn't come yet, do something. Make a move. Bust a move. Make something happen. Never undermine the power of an ordinary woman. Heber represents Christians who don't want to give themselves fully to God, and they don't want to give themselves fully to the world. They are between God and the world. They don't want to give themselves fully to God because it's too much sacrifice. God requires too much sacrifice of them. God requires them to give up too much. So they don't want to give themselves fully to God, but they don't want to give themselves fully to the world either. Why? Because they're scared of hell. Yeah. So they are like in between God and between the Canaanites. And that was the life of Heber. That was the life of Heber. And at some point, a war broke between Israel and the Canaanites. Now Heber has to choose a side. Because when you're trying to be a Christian, or a Christian and a pagan at the same time, a believer and unbeliever at the same time, one day you're going to have to choose. You can't stay like that all of your life. You can't straddle the fence all of your life. One day you're going to have to choose. And guess what? Usually it's going to be easier. You're going to fall. If you're standing on the fence or you're sitting on the fence, you're going to fall on one side or the other. And usually the side that you fall on is the Canaanite side. Is the head of the man. And the man is the head of the woman. So you are my head as long as Christ is your head. But when when the devil becomes your head, I can't just offer my head to you like that so you can take me to hell. So yes, a man, you're supposed to submit to your husband, but you're submitting to your husband as long as your husband is not in conflict with God. Submitting doesn't mean going against God. Can I go a little bit further? Oh, Lord. Okay. Submitting also does not mean that every nonsense decision that you make, that I'm supposed to say, yes, sir. No, it doesn't mean that. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that I'm supposed to nod and say, yes, sir. Every nonsense decision, no, it doesn't mean that. A woman is supposed to be a helper next to her husband. Now, I'm not talking, guys, I'm not talking about getting into an argument and getting into a discussion. Every decision that your husband makes and you start contradicting the decision, because you don't like it. Because now that's the flesh, that's a lack of humility, and you need to die in that sense. You just need to die. If you're getting into an argument with your husband because you don't like the decision, it means that you do not have humility to submit yourself. It's called the flesh, and the Bible only has one remedy for the flesh: crucify. If you end up in jail, she will be the one visiting you in jail. None of those friends. Let her help you. Her job is to help. Let her help you. Says she gets up before dawn and prepares breakfast for her household and plans the day work for her servants girl. Look at verse 16. She goes out and inspects a field. I like that. And buys it. She's a businesswoman. She's working on a house, but she's a businesswoman. She inspects the fields and buy it. And with her own hand, she plants a vineyard. And look at what it says. She's energetic. She's a hard worker. She watches for a bargain. And she works far into the night. She gets up before dawn and wakes. She gets up before dawn and works far into the night. She wakes up before dawn and works far into the night. So it means that Jael, that God is raising in this generation, they're gonna be energetic women. They're gonna be hardworking women. They are women who can make things happen. Somebody shout glory. Thank you for watching that video. If it was a blessing to you, click the red button that says subscribe. Click. Now. Do it now.